essential things. Okay. Om Agina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmaya Shri Gurube Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarvat Namaha Yam Pravajantamanapetyam Apeti Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tammayata Yotarabo Binadustam Sarvabhutam Munim Hridayatatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparara Lakshay Shiptascha Karmadi Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charanaravindam Ajami Radam Aravinda Netram Smarami Radam Varshvasasyam Vadami Radam Karana Bharadram Tato Mamanasti Katyana Kapi. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Prabhishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and all the Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams, and all our glorious Upanuga Guru Varga, my prostrated obeisances to all. Hare Krishna. So, I think we're up to the beginning again, right? Pritiviteyaya Kata Dharma Namachala Bhagavata Kahi Sabha Paripurna Chale.
As indicated in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, second shloka, all the philosophies on earth that are celebrated as dharma are utterly deceptive.
How amazing at this point in history, when so many fake previous things that we've had our faith in have been exposed, but he is writing this down at the very beginning of his Falshruti. There is so much, because this is the Maya, this is the deception of Maya Devi. She is deceiving us all, first of all, into thinking that we're the body, and this is mine, this belongs to me, this ahankara, and this idea of everything, my own property, etc. Neglecting Krishna. That's, have you got a cushion and everything? And books are there. And first verse, this is not propagating anything deceptive. Chale dharma chale kara satya dharma mati chaturvagya tyaji dara nitya prema gati.
One should completely abandon such deceptive dharmas and observe his mind in true dharma.
Such a sweetness when you actually absorb the mind in the truth. The mind responds in because it's sattva. It's goodness for a start, and then after some period it'll become Shuddha Sattva, and then the mind will feel so blissful with that absorption. Why would we not go in that direction? Why would we remain in the nimitic dharmas? Why are we should ask these questions. Why am I so attached to this nimitic dharma? Why am I so attached to my bodily relationships, etc., and surprised when someone leaves their body or dies? Why do I have to be engrossed in that illusion? Part of knowledge, which is what we're acquiring by reading this Jaiva Dharma, is so we can purify the illusion. That's the objective. More than that, that's the first objective. The second objective, the principal objective, is to come to know who is the Supreme. And then more than that, how can I have a relationship with the Supreme? Then even more than that, how can I have a favorable relationship with the Supreme? Then more than that, how can I become friendly with the Supreme? It's a whole chain, but it starts from getting some liberation from this material entanglement. My attachment to this material world creates the binding. As soon as the attachments slacken, then the liberation channel, so to speak, the consciousness can start to appreciate my spiritual identity. Not so easy to actually, Haribol, none of us. Not so easy to actually get it. We talk about it simply enough, but actually Realizing it, vigyan, is completely different.
In other words, one should give up the fourfold goals of material life: dharma, arth, kam, moksha, and aspire solely for the ultimate destination of Nitya Prem.
Yes, our focus should be very, very clear on, first you have to know what is Nitya Prem. If you don't know what is Nitya Prem, if you don't know Krishna, how can you focus on Krishna? If you're just concerned with aspects in this material realm of nimitic dharma, even in the society of devotees, constructing temples, doing this, doing that, doing food for life, all kinds of different things. These are all wonderful, supportive activities, but the goal in the heart, if bhajan is not there, if that is vacant, what can be the success? Really, on a transcendental level, where's it going to go? You see, what can happen materially is you can become very proud of anything. I'm building a huge, big temple. How great am I? I'm doing this seva, I'm doing that seva. These diseases of pratishta can just come in very insidiously, just they can creep in. We don't even know they're there unless we have good association. It's always association is absolutely necessary. Amitvam imamsa brahme nija dada buddhi nirvishesha brahma jnana na he chidashuddhi.
Those who are deluded identify themselves with matter.
That's the delusion. This is Maya. When we hear about it regularly, repeatedly, we start to understand it's a reality. Yes, I am in illusion. Own up to it. Don't try and pretend just because I wear tilak, chant a few mantras, I'm not in illusion. I can remember in the early days we used to think, well, I'm not concerned with the material modes of nature, I'm beyond it because I've got been shaved up, I've got tilak on. I'm no longer influenced by the three modes of material nature. You know, like heavy, rajasic, passionate kirtan or something, but nothing to do. Anyway, appreciate, be humble and realize Krishna's Kaviraj said we should wear this as a jewel, a locket on the neck. Trinada pisu nichena, tarora pisu hishena, amanina manadena, kirtanya sarahari. If we unpack that verse, it's so powerful and beautiful, that Shikshastakam. In these early verses of the Shikshastakam, Mahaprabhu's humility is rising and rising. And then in the fifth verse, Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram, then it's like he is completely absorbed in the feminine identity. Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram. Ai is how a woman will address another person. Ai. A man will say Are. A woman will say Ai. So he's taken on the full identity of Sri Radhika. He's come through that humble process and manifested that state of consciousness. So very significant, important.
That is their error. However, one cannot be purified of such delusion by endeavors for Nirvishesh Brahma Gyan.
Nirvishesh Brahmagyan. It's a tragedy. We just come from there, so we still have a sanskar of being happy in that shantaras, happy in that Brahmagyan. And the world gets so hectic, we just want to return to that neutral place. Neutral meaning there's no active relationship. Relationships can be very challenging. You know, they require work, they require empathy, they require respect. A lot of these beautiful qualities, all this is coming from the Sangvik Shakti. We have the Sandini Shakti from Baladev Prabhu, supplying all the bodily aspects, all the external aspects, right, from Sandini Shakti. And then we have the Chit potency, the Sandini Shakti. And that, Sangvit. And then that is giving knowledge of the relationship. Then the Hladini is the taste and the happiness of that relationship. These three Shaktis are very much integrally connected. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sandini, Sangvit, Hladini. We should know all these aspects. If we want to love Krishna, if that is our real genuine purpose in life, is to generate affection and attraction for Krishna, not pratibimba, not the reflection of that. And there are many reflections that can derail us and drag us away. not even chaya, not even that. These are all abhas, but actually what is the reality? Do I really want Krishna? I'm going to die. This body will die. What is its value? Not much value, but the soul, what it's appreciated during its brief sojourn in this material world, that will be of value. Have I understood that my objective, like coming from the Brahmajyoti, if we had appreciated, yes, this service to Krishna is the supreme, we would never have come here. So again, we've got to go back to that place in our minds where we have no desire to be here at all, except to serve Krishna, like you're doing the Food for Life is serving Krishna. Of course, it's serving Krishna. But is that your particular mindset and heart while you're doing it? If it's for other reasons, etc., then it's not pure seva. So we're always looking for that pure seva. And only that can come through Guru. No other way whatsoever. Only Guru has the lock and key to the door. And I've said so many times, Guru is made up of the entire Guru Vargya. Without that submission, without that connection, that sambandha with Guru, absolutely nothing will transpire. Nothing at all. We can try so hard by our own efforts. What's that called? Aroha panta, climbing up the ladder by myself. But it won't bring success. How many people, Ravana, I think, and particularly Ravana, tried to climb to Swaga? They made whole steps, right? And of course they get smashed. You can't climb. You can't even go to these material planets, that are actually not, they're heavenly planets in a spaceship or something like that. It's saying in the 5th canto very clearly, we didn't go to the moon. That's a heavenly planet, further away than the sun. You can't go that far. It's not physically possible to go that far. So there's all these material deceptions around us today, in particular today, that are being sort of like revealed. It's a very powerful time in the world when many of these fallacies are being exposed. And we should see in the various religious and spiritual institutions, they're also going through a cleansing, so to speak. And many exposures are going on. But most of all, we should see in our own hearts. How can I wake up to this illusion and realize that I am just a tiny, tiny servant? And that's such an honor to be a servant of Krishna. I mean, that's the greatest wealth conceivable. That's something really to be celebrated. I'm a servant of Krishna. That's something so wonderful. By birth, it's our inheritance to be a servant of Krishna. That's the most beautiful jewel to be proud of in existence. So we to take it to the limit and become good servants of Krishna. Because there's good servants and there's bad servants. Good sons and bad sons. Ivichitrata hina hale nirvishesh hoy kala semutalya seha aprakrata noy.
The Mayavadi thinks Sri Krishna to be subject to the limitations of time, such as birth and death, and considers that he is not transcendental. Thus, he rejects Sri Bhagavan's Vichitrata, astonishing characteristics, paraphernalia, qualities, and Leela. Through this vicious attempt, he is left with the philosophy of Nirvishesh Brahm.
How tragic. This is by that stubborn person who wants to consider that Krishna is as far as I can perceive him. They have no appreciation of this achintya bhav. You can only experience that astonishing appreciation if you're a little bit humble. Yes, I don't know. I don't know what is the truth. Wow, that's amazing. Wow, I'm astonished, like a child. A child doesn't have to be told he doesn't know the truth. He already knows he doesn't know the truth. So they're astonished at every moment. And this astonishment, it's called achintya bhav. I'm astonished by these various scriptural realities of my situation. And it's all together giving me a clear and clearer picture of ultimately who is Krishna? Who is this person that I'm trying to develop a relationship? Because I've forgotten, in the sense that, well, I've never actually known, but we term it like, because in reality, the soul, in a part of the soul, it's always been with Krishna. Paramatma is there. So we've always been connected, but we've forgotten that connection. That's why the word forget is not a good word, but we have no other word in the English language. It doesn't mean that once I was with Krishna and now I've actually literally forgot. It means how can you, it's like, for example, if you're born in India, but your mother and father are English, and they say to you, now we're going home, back to England. You've never been to England in your life, but they say, no, this is your home. So you have some sort of sanskar, some impression of that come from your parents. So you're actually going home, even though you've never been there before. Many things on these points. So this Falshruti is very inspiring. Okay, chapter 10. And we're into the history. So yesterday, Babaji was speaking so beautifully to Nyayaratna, who was something getting it. Nyayaratna is like a Brahmin from birth. His caste, that means it's like embedded within his psyche, his nature is Brahman. He can't step outside of there. And he's very proud of that. And he wants, he's against the Vaishnava cult or Vaishnava Dharma because it actually seems to be taking away his livelihood as a Brahmin. It's undermining his authenticity as a Brahmin, because people are because Vaishnava Dharma has no boundaries. You know, a Chandala can embrace Vaishnava Dharma. So the Brahmanas, very caste conscious, they object to that liberal attitude of breaking down the traditional exclusivity of the Brahmin caste. We have to understand it with empathy, where he's coming from. You know, they need to be reprogrammed. They need to chant Hare Krishna. They need the mercy. They're still eligible for Krishna's mercy, but how to give that mercy? You can't give that mercy if you're just going to dismiss them without, I mean, Vaishnava Das is taking a long time, a lot of words he's saying here, even though he probably knows this Brahman is not going to, you know, take to Vaishnava Dharma very easily, but still he's spilling a lot of blood, so to speak, trying to express the truth. Vaishnavas are so compassionate. So we're witnessing this in the chapter also. Vaishnava Babaji, Vaishnav Das, his compassion towards this person. Okay, so I'll read the question, then I'll at the bottom of page 230, and then we'll go into 231. Something will be repeated, but it'll bring us up to speed, so to speak. Nyayaratra, come what may, our study of Shastra has imbued us with, oh yes, because Vaishnava Das wants to speak directly with him. So he's asked, do you mind if I speak directly? Will you become upset? And now Nyayaratra is answering this. Come what may, our study of the Shastra has imbued us with a fondness for tranquility, self-control, and tolerance. There is no question of not being able to tolerate your words. Please speak openly and without hesitation, and I will certainly respect whatever is reasonable and good. Vaishnava Das, please consider that Ramanuja Madhva, because he'd considered, Nyayaratna has considered that there were no qualified pundits these days, and previously all the Brahmins had accepted this truth. And he wants sort of support for this. Please consider that Ramanuja, Madhva, Vishnu Swami, and Nimbaditya were all Brahmanas, and that they each had thousands of Brahmana disciples. In Bengal, our Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a Vedic Brahmin. Our Nityananda Prabhu was a Radiya Brahmin, and our Advaita Prabhu was a Varendra Brahmin. Our Goswamis and Mahajans were almost all Brahmanas. Thousands of Brahmanas, who are the very pinnacle of the Brahminical lineage, have taken refuge of Vaishnava Dharma and are propagating this spotless religion in the world. So how can you claim that high-class Brahmanas have no regard for Vaishnava Dharma? This is what he was saying previously. By the way, interrupt me with any type of question as we go along here. I will find it very inspiring. I'm speaking to you. I want you to understand this. I don't know how much you understand until you say something to me. So don't hesitate or be shy. I don't know how many people are on the podcast or anything. And I requested yesterday that they should type any questions in so that I can make some connection. We know that the Brahmins who honor Vaishnava Dharma are all high-class Brahmanas. However, some people who have taken birth in Brahmana families have become inimical towards Vaishnava Dharma because they are marred by the faults of degraded family lineage, undesirable association, and false education. So 3 reasons why these traditional Brahmins have not been able to absorb Vaishnava Dharma, because they have become degraded in their family lineage, means that they have become mixed in their marriages. The Brahmin caste should marry a Brahmana, should marry a Brahmani, etc. And then as soon as you step out of that caste system, you get Mishra qualities coming. It's like in the Bhagavatam, in the 4th canto, in the 1st chapter of the 4th canto, there's a whole genealogical table written to impress Parikshit what is the pedigree, we can almost say, of these personalities from Swayambhuva Manu, and then his 2 sons, Priyavrata and Uttanapad, and then Devahuti, and then Akuti and Prashuti, these 5 personalities, and what are all their lines, etc. This is showing the purity of the personality. When you get a pure line, like a pedigree horse we talk about today, or a pedigree dog, if you know the father and the mother all the way back, generation after generation after generation, you can track its purity. And humans are exactly the same, like Yudhisthira Maharaj and all his brothers, etc. Where he came from Yamaraj, and then where did he come from, etc., etc. All the whole line, Queen Kunti, is there. And that seminal line is very supportive of good consciousness. If it's just all Mishra, mixed, like we are today, completely mixed, therefore so much chaos on the planet, because there aren't any pure personalities holding pure minds because of their births, not to speak of the environment, etc. Everything is just so much disturbed. And a lot of it because of the mixed. So it's saying here, degraded family lineage, and then undesirable association. Yes, they've sought lower association. I can remember meeting on trains, these people who said, oh yes, I'm a Brahmana. And I say, well, what is your occupation and work? Oh, I work in the liquor store. Wow, you're a Brahmana and you work in the liquor store. So how do you put that together? So they're like that. They think it's fine because it's become normal. All these lower types of graded activities have become normal. So they think it's okay, and still call myself a Brahmana. They've misplaced the reality of the world, of the word. This is what Vaishnava Das is saying. Undesirable association and false education. What is the education? To make money and be happy, to exploit the world to the best of your ability. If I go to school and get myself my MA, which all India is just crazy about education, you see everywhere new educational institutes being opened up, and the families and so on, they are absolutely solidly in the mindset and belief that if my son passes his exams, he will get a lot of money and he will be happy. My personal family was exactly the same, because they had been through the Second World War and they'd been deprived of all sorts of material things. So they figured that the only way to be happy was to make money. Unless you're a Vaishnava, unless you're a devotee, and you can sit above on the transcendental consciousness, you're going to think that money is going to give you the freedom to enjoy the pleasures of this world. That's all you're going to know. So no transcendence will be there possible. So undesirable is, oh, what does it say? Education. False education. Yeah, this is false education. Believing that I can be happy if I make a lot of money, and I can only make a lot of money if I get my various degrees. In India right now, there's like an inflation of MAs. I mean, there's just so many of them, and they end up by sweeping the street or something, or serving pan to people, or, you know, they can't even get a job that is their educational qualification. So it's just completely bogus, you know, from top to bottom. Such behavior only demonstrates their misfortune and fallen condition. We're describing the Brahmanas. He's not, what do you call, maligning them. He's not angry. He's just pointing out how these defects have arisen. It's unfortunate, and they've become fallen. We're seeing it from the higher platform. We're not seeing, let's change the world, you know, you know, do something about it. This is how it's happened in Kali Yuga. So we accept how it's happened. And where we can educate, we do. But as far as what can you do? You have to accept so much. Because if you don't accept, what's the alternative? You just become angry, disturbed yourself more, isn't it? There is no evidence that they are actually Brahmanas. It is to be especially noted that according to Shastra, the number of true Brahmanas in Kali Yuga is exceedingly small. And these few are Vaishnavas, just like we spoke the other day about Christians. The true Christians are the Vaishnavas today. Anyone who's a real Christian will become a Vaishnava if they really want God. Because most of these groups, they just want their group to be the supreme, rather than actually the sincerity of wanting the Supreme Lord themselves in their own lives, right? They just want to say, yes, I'm the best. Look, the big group I have. Even various sanghas are the same within the Vaishnava cult. My group's better than your group. The Gaudiya Math's better than this one, that one, this one, and so on and so on. This is all very petty. This is not on the transcendental platform at all. We're all servants of Krishna, and we're all trying to utilize these very brief, crazy lives to actually get an appreciation of how beautiful Krishna is, so I can become attracted to him, render him service. Because that's the only potency, it's the only thing of value. Everything else is temporary, and is, whether it's this group or that group or this guru or that guru. The gurus may be Mahabhagavats, etc., but if they make a group which is against this sectarianism, Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about this very, very strongly. This sectarianism is the enemy of truth. As soon as you've got sectarianism, you lose the transcendental current, because you think, oh, this is the best. You're not seeing it from a transcendental perspective. You understand what I'm saying? Tell me what I'm saying.
We are limiting the unlimited energy of Krishna to
Very good. We're limiting the unlimited.
The potency of Krishna, unlimited.
Yes.
To some section.
Yes, to just some sect, to some group. This is exactly what the Brahmanas are doing today. And this is what Vaishnava Das is pointing out. You're just saying that only Brahmanas can be qualified ultimately for the supreme truth. Of course, unfortunately, the Brahmanas, they think the supreme truth is moksha. They don't even have the opening out of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's gifts of Braja Prem or Bhakti Ras. They haven't even gone in that direction because they've been blanked off from the very beginning. It's a long journey to come to Bhakti Ras, Braja Prem. It is to be especially noted that according to Shastra, the number of true Brahmanas in Kali Yuga is exceedingly small. What is the first quality of a Brahmana? Is forgiveness and patience Do we see much forgiveness and patience? Something is there, but not very much. When a Brahmana receives the Vaishnava Gayatri mantra, which is the mother of the Vedas, he becomes an initiated Vaishnava. However, due to the contamination of Kali Yuga, some of these Brahmanas accept another non-Vedic institution and abandon their Vaishnavism. Yes, they go in some other. Huh? What did I say? Oh, sorry. However, due to the contamination of Kali Yuga, some of these Brahmanas accept another non-Vedic initiation. It's a little bit the same thing, yeah, but it is initiation. And abandon their Vaishnavism. Granted, the number of Vaishnava Brahmins is very small, but that is still no reason to manufacture a conclusion that is opposed to the tenets of Shastra. Everything depends on Shastra. If we think that it depends on my speculative ability, on what I think I know, I don't know anything. I follow Shastra. Shastra is what speaks. Shastra is the wealth. Shastra is the goal. Shastra is the strength. If we have Shastric foundation and basis, we can move forward with confidence. This Shraddha, Shabde Vishvasa Koi, Sudrita Nishchoy. We can have this transcendental paramatic Shraddha can manifest. But without Shastra, without a basis on that, it's like you take many religions in the Western world, like I was thinking in South America, what they have, shamanism and so many things like this, all kinds of different groups. And something they've taken from the Vedas, which gives them some authenticity, but they've neglected so much of it. So they're not in channel, that they're not supported. The Shastras were designed by the rishis and sages to support our journey back to loving God. That's why the Shastras are here, to support us, just like, the pleasure of that. And some people, they want to disregard the principles of religiosity and just go according to their hearts. There's an example, what's the most popular activity on the planet? Most popular activity is probably football on the whole planet. How can you have a game of football without rules and regulations? It's totally bound by rules and regulations. If you pass the ball forward or whatever it is, you're offside. If the ball goes out of the boundaries, the ref blows the whistle. If you do something wrong, you get a penalty point, etc. There's all these. Why can't the practitioner appreciate the rules and regulations of life in a spiritual journey? How can we? I mean, the rules are beautiful. They're divine. They're given by the rishis and sages. They're given for us, for our strength and support. We should never, ever neglect. We may perform some activity that takes us beyond the rules and regulations. When you're a very mature devotee, you may not have to perform various of the initial instructions. But you should always know what are all the rules and regulations. We should know them all. And there are so many of them. If you live in the Gaudiya Math for a while, you'll find them all out. I mean, they have them all distributing. You'll get slapped. If you walk across your sitting place, for example, you've taken prasadam and then you get up and just walk across where you've eaten. That's an aparat to prasad, because there's bound to be some grain of rice there and you're walking across the top of it. So many things. But we should know all this, but don't go crazy about it. We should know what they all are and when they're to be, accepted, etc. Understand? We need that foundational education. It's very, very supportive and helpful. It's very helpful to know how, because if all of a sudden you're in a group of very elderly, Vaishnavas in an assembly, and you don't know how to behave properly, then immediately you'll just be pegged as someone who's not very qualified. And then whatever you speak will not be taken with much seriousness. My Gurudev was so pucker. Oh, where are we? Nayaratna. Why is it that so many low-class people accept Vaishnava Dharma? He's really unhappy this year right now. Vaishnava Das. This should not be the cause for doubt. Most low-class people consider themselves quite wretched and downtrodden, and thus they are eligible for the mercy of the Vaishnavas, without which one cannot become a Vaishnava. That's our great fortune. We're all coming from Western world. We are all called Antyaja. We are not even in the four orders of civilization. We are outside, not you. I'm looking at you, but it's not you. We are outside of the four orders of the Varnashram. We are Antyaja, outside. So we should know that, and that will be to our benefit to appreciate my fallen nature. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he writes about it so much in those beautiful poems. He's wretched, he's so dinhin, he's so humble like this in his moods, because he's seeing how great is Krishna. So therefore he's able to see and perceive how small is he. If you can see how great is Krishna, then you know how small are you. This is very helpful to get things in perspective. Humility cannot touch the heart of one who is intoxicated with the pride of high birth and wealth, and consequently it is very rare for such people to obtain the mercy of the Vaishnavas. We have the pastime of Vallabha Bhattacharya. He went to Mahaprabhu in Puri and said, I want you to read my commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. It's better than Sridhar Swami's. And Mahaprabhu said, someone who thinks that they can do better than Sridhar Swami is no better than a prostitute. Sridhar Swami is the top commentator in our line historically. And he was thinking and saying to Mahaprabhu even that his commentary was better. And every day, he went for weeks to try to establish his prominence in the society of the Vaishnavas in Puri. And every day Mahaprabhu would cut him, ignore him. Finally, one day he did wake up and realized, how futile his attempts were, that actually he was like a duck in the assembly of swans. Very, very beautiful, exemplary pastime of Mahaprabhu, just purifying this. And he says at the very end, he says, someone who has great ability, because he had great knowledge, etc. But if that's coupled with a great amount of pride, then it's utterly useless, because it means you haven't really understood anything anyway. If the pride is there, if the pride eclipses the knowledge, and what does pride mean? It means you. Pride and envy are like brother and sister. Humility and sincerity, or humility and prem, are like brother and sister. So you have these two on each side. You understand? You have, the materially conditioned soul contains nothing but pride. He's proud of everything in his life. Even he's proud of his, hairstyle. He's proud of his family, his bank balance, his car, everything he's proud of. Anything to grab some sort of like reputation in this material world, because that's the path of the conditioned soul. What else does he have to go for? That's all he's got. It's tragic. We have to help them if we can. If we've helped ourselves first, providing we've healed ourselves. Don't try and help someone if you can't help yourself. How can you save someone drowning if you don't even know how to swim?
How does this
ludicrous?
Huh? How does Jiva acquire this pride?
It seems to come like a wind. It just comes out of nowhere so quickly. It's like a protection almost against the truth. We don't really want the truth at heart. So this pride will come and shield us from the truth. I said the other day this beautiful quote by Srila Bhakti Rakshakshri Maharaj, that he says what was that? Oh, the ego, the false ego, is only present to shield us from the immensity of our absolute insignificance in this world. We are so insignificant. We have nothing of value. Nothing of value is there in this world for us. Nothing. except our concocted imaginations of ourselves. There's nothing there of value except Guru's pleasure. If Guru becomes pleased with us, then we have value. Only that. So this pride will just come as like a, keep me away. My pride will be there just to keep the distance. Very hard to check that. Coming from a Brahmin caste, you must have witnessed this many times. It's like, it's really tragic because it like stops you going deep in any type of relationship or anything, because this pride, it's like a huge, huge stumbling block. And if you don't have that pride, all the Vaishnavas can just jump on you and give you so much mercy. It's like if someone is really weeping and really showing their humility genuinely, immediately everyone is going to come and support them. It's like, for example, if you've made some big, big mistake in your practice, and if you have remorse for it, if you have a genuine feeling that, yes, I committed something really bad, I'm really unhappy about it, all the Vaishnavas will come and try to help you. But if you don't have that remorse, yeah, it's okay, I did that, okay, I'm just a conditioned soul, what can I do? Not so bad. Then you'll get no sympathy, no support from the Vaishnavas at all, because there's not a drop of humility in there. Humility, actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives one very nice analogy of humility. He says, having no expectations. We should have no expectations of others. We shouldn't expect them to do anything. That's a good point, isn't it? Really try to think on that point. I've thought about it for many years, that idea, having no expectations of other people. I'm not expecting you to do this or that. So I'm not going to be disappointed by anything. But if I have all these high expectations, I'm just going to crash. Nyayartna, I don't care to discuss this subject any further. We've had this before in the different discussions that Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes about. They reach this point where they don't want to discuss it anymore. This means that they've been defeated on it. It means they have no more challenge on this particular point. I can see that you will inevitably quote the harsh descriptions from Shastra of the Brahmins of Kali Yuga. He calls them harsh because they're hurtful to him. I feel greatly pained when I hear particular statements from the Shastra, such as this one from the Varaha Purana. Rakshasa kalim ashritya jayante brahma yonishu. Taking refuge of the age of Kali, demons are born in the families of Brahmanas. Let us not pursue this topic any further. Now, please tell me why you don't respect Sri Sankaracharya, who is a limitless ocean of knowledge. Vaishnava Das, why do you say that? We consider that Sri Sankaracharya to be an incarnation of Sri Mahadev. Sriman Mahaprabhu instructed us to honor him by addressing him as Acharya. His name is Sankar. We call him Sankaracharya. He's to be honored so greatly. We only reject his Mayavad doctrine because it is a covered form of Buddhism, which the Vedas do not support. Because Lord Buddha, he expelled the Vedas from India, we know. And it was Sankaracharya's delegated service to bring the Vedas back into India. So in order to do that, he had to preach a covered form of Mayavadism also. He established the Mayavad principles on the basis of Shastra, so that at least the Shastra would come back and people would be touching the Shastra. And then Krishna knew that from just touching the sacred Shastra, eventually they would come in line with what is pure Sanatana Dharma, what is pure Vaishnava Dharma. You understand? So this was the purpose. We only reject his Mayavad doctrine because it is a covered form of Buddhism, which the Vedas do not support. On Bhagavan's order, Sankaracharya distorted the meaning of the Vedas, Vedanta, and the Gita, and he broadcast the false doctrine of impersonal monism, known as Advaitavad, to convert those men who had a demonic nature. What fault is there in this for which Sankaracharya should be condemned? It would appear to be a fault for an uneducated man that Sankaracharya's preaching covered Buddhism, covered Mayavadism. But for an educated man who understands the whole picture, then it's it's like Sankaracharya or Shivji drinking the poison from the ocean of churning the ocean. It seems like a degraded type of a thing to do. Why was he did it out of compassion completely. The Devas didn't know what to do with that poison. They couldn't have continued churning out these jewels or treasures from the ocean of milk unless that poison had been drunk by Sankaracharya, by Shivji. Buddhadev is an avatar of Bhagavan, who also established and preached a doctrine that is opposed to the Vedas. But do descendants of the Aryans condemn him for this? Someone may disagree with such activities of Sri Bhagavan and Mahadev and claim that they are unjust. But we say that Bhagavan is the protector of the universe and Sri Mahadev is his representative, and they are both all-knowing and all-auspicious. That's very powerful. Bhagavan is the supreme person and Mahadev is his supreme.
Right. When it says that, just before we read that, he broadcast the false doctrine of impersonal monism known as Vaishnava to convert those men who had a demoniac nature. Means convert the demoniac nature back towards the Vedas, or what does it mean by?
Yes, demonic nature
from...
means impersonal nature. It means to those people who had become impersonal because of the teachings of Lord Buddha without the Vedic support platform, they had become complete nirvisheshvadis, impersonal. So this is demonic. This mentality is demonic, to take the personal aspect out of Krishna. So Sankaracharya, he was giving them back the Vedas, these demonic people, so that they would get an opportunity to purify that impersonalism. I mean, he was giving them impersonalism so they would be attracted to begin with. But then after that, because what did Sankaracharya say at the very, very end of his life? Bhaje Govinda, Bhaje Govinda, Bhaje Govinda. He said, worship Govinda, worship Govinda. This is what he said at the end of his life.
But
did you understand that?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Tell me back.
You were saying, well, point is, this Nivishesh Buddhist type understanding, it's completely devoid of anything beneficial at all. But
it actually hurts the body of the Lord if you propagate it.
Yeah, but then by bringing them back to the Vedas, it's not only giving them an opportunity to come to the actual truth, but also like so many of these rituals, they're chanting the name of God, they're somehow indirectly getting so much more opportunity to
connect
come to the path of bhakti.
Yes.
Whereas for the Buddhist thing, it's
nothing.
No
Yes,
chance.
absolutely. Well done. Yes, that's very good. So, but those, just to, the language here is saying, where was it? Demonic nature. Convert those men who had a demonic nature. This doesn't mean all men, but those who had a demonic nature could be purified and benefited by that. Buddhadev is an avatar of Bhagavan who also established and preached a doctrine that is opposed to the Vedas. But do descendants of the Aryans condemn him for this? Someone may disagree with such activities of Sri Bhagavan and Mahadev and claim that they are unjust. But we say that Bhagavan is the protector of the universe and Sri Mahadev is his representative, and they are both all-knowing and all-auspicious, so they can't make mistakes. There can be no fault. Bhagavan and Mahadev cannot possibly be guilty of injustice. The point is, we haven't understood them. That's why some ignorant person might proclaim that. Those who blame them are ignorant and narrow-minded and cannot understand the deeper significance of their activities. My Gurudev spent a long time explaining this point about Sankaracharya, because many people in India today follow that Advaita philosophy, that Sankaracharya. They ask straight away, "Oh, have you read the Sankari Bhasya? Have you read this?" And they argue on that because it's very convenient to be impersonal. It means you don't really have to put any particular emphasis on various relationships and so on, because you think it's all temporary anyway. There's no need to connect. You don't really see the Lord in each single person. And you have in your heart the desire just to go back to that impersonal place. So you neglect. Because as I just said, relationships are sometimes very difficult. They have to have work, they have to have empathy, they have to have plenty of giving and taking, etc. They're not so easy. So someone might get fried of all that and just want to be on their own and living in a Brahman type consciousness. We have to be aware of that. These dangers are there. Bhagavan and his activities are beyond human reasoning. That means they're achintya. That means they're inconceivable. We have to always come back to that point of the achintya bhav. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says a few times in here, without achintya bhav, you can't really be a Vaishnava. That word achintya bhav implies humility. If I'm looking at something, wow, astonishing, it means I am appreciating that I'm very small and insignificant, because I can appreciate the immensity of this cosmic manifestation. So that must be there. Otherwise, Bhagavan and his activities are beyond human reasoning. So intelligent people should never think Ishwara should not have done that. It would have been better for him to do this. How proud could that be? That you actually think, why didn't... I mean, many people in the world do think this. Why did God take away my child? Doesn't he know how much I love my child? Why did he make him die of a fever? I don't like God. You know, and they rage against so many people. Why is there a war going on, you know? If God is all loving and merciful, why did he make people kill each other? You know, the blaming God all the time, when it's actually the defect of the material jiva's consciousness that is creating all these difficulties for himself. Ishwara is the director of all jivas, and only he knows the necessity for binding men of ungodly nature with the doctrine of illusion. There's a purpose to this, and Krishna is arranging his plan, and his plan is perfect for what? Perfect for our bhakti, not perfect for our material sense enjoyment in any form, in any way, not like a rope siddha bhakti. Oh, I just want to go to the countryside, have a nice little house, have a nice little cow, have a nice little temple, and we all have happy families chanting Hare Krishna. This is not what necessary. It may be, if it's under the guidance of a Shuddha Bhakta, it may have benefit, definitely. But if it's just to try and enjoy sattva gun, that is not the objective of the Shastras. The objective of the Shastras is to bring us to a point of bhakti, devotion, following in the anugatya of the gopis. And their prem is just so high. They could sit for 100 years in distraught separation mood from their most beloved. When you really meditate on this, and Bhagavatam gives us the window to that through these 5 Gits. These 5 Gits are all about separation moods. Venu Gita, when the gopis are sitting in their homes and they're not with Krishna and they're wishing they could be. They're wishing they could be like the rain cloud that can come and cover Krishna. They're wishing they could be like the suckers. They're wishing they could be like the cows, like even the peacocks, like the flute, definitely. All these different personalities who appear to have close proximity with Krishna, but they don't have that, they're thinking. This is all separation mood. Venu Gita, the first chapter. Then Pranaya Gita, when they actually run to the Ras Leela and Krishna tells them to go home. This is a very special Gita because Krishna's there. So this is meeting and separation together. There's very much specialities in that Pranaya Gita, because they're able to see in that Pranaya Gita the Ishwara feature of Krishna as Paramatma in everybody at the same time as their eternal lover. This is different to Vena Gita. Pranaya Gita is very heart-wrenching, 10 verses in that, 29th chapter of the Bhagavatam, 10th canto. And then Pranaya Gita, then Gopi Gita. This is the highest, most lamenting song of separation in the whole Bhagavatam. Jayati te dikam janmana vraja dayate dre. Anyway, but these beautiful verses are all there. And Gopi Gita. And then Yugal Gita, where the gopis are seeing the most wonderful pastimes of Krishna, but Krishna's not there with them. And then Brahmara Gita, when Krishna's already gone to Mathura. And Radharani is just, she's become like so skinny, described her breasts have become black. And she's just on the verge, on a whisper of just leaving her body. But she's staying in her body because Krishna said he would come back. And if Krishna comes back and Radharani's left, then this is not going to be pleasing for Krishna. My life and soul, every part of myself is only to please Krishna, even though Krishna is a debauchee and has left me and gone to Mathura or gone to Dwarka. Still, he is my Praneshwari. Asli Siyava Padam, Mahaprabhu sings in the last verse of Shikshastakam. Even if you enjoy with other lovers in front of me, still, you are my Priyatma. You are my heart beloved. So this meeting and separation is showing us the extremity of the love. Why was I saying that? Of the gopis. What was the link? What was the link? No one's listening. What was the link? Have to read back a bit and see where I started that. Sankaracharya. Oh yes, we were talking about Advaita Vad and how impersonal that is, and what a tragedy it is that they're actually missing all of these opportunities to hear about Krishna's sweet Leela. Ishwara is the director of all jivas, and only he knows the necessity for binding men of ungodly nature with the doctrine of illusion. We have no means of understanding Ishwara's purpose for manufacturing the jivas at the time of creation and then destroying their forms at the time of cosmic annihilation. This is all Bhagavan's Leela. Those who are intently devoted to Bhagavan experience great delight in hearing his pastimes. They don't like to engage in intellectual debates about these matters. The intellectual debates will just relegate the pastimes just to being analytical sort of stories with if you think like there's Mayavad or impersonal translations of the Bhagavad Gita, and they say that the 5 Pandavas are the 5 material senses. You understand? It completely takes the sweetness of the Leela away as soon as you start to implant that kind of overlap of what was actually there. This is why Prabhupada specifically wrote his Bhagavad Gita as it is. It's glorifying those heroes, those 5 Pandavas, those 5 immensely potent personalities who are Nityasiddha Parikas of Krishna. And we should accept them fully for who they are, not for some quasi what you think it might represent or something. That's completely speculative. That's horrible to read that. I've seen it written. Listen, we're going to stop at 6 o'clock. So he just says, yes, don't engage in intellectual debates about these matters. Nyayaratna hasn't finished yet, though. He's still going to go on for a couple more pages. Which is good. A few more pages left. I'm never, by the way, trying to run through quickly this Jaiva Dharma. My aim and object is not to complete the Jaiva Dharma at all. My aim and object is to try to appreciate the Jaiva Dharma for every single page. And sometimes the sentences are so heavy and full, we can spend some time unpacking them, because it's not all the time that we're going to get the same opportunity to actually open them up. But still, we should be familiar with the whole chapter and the whole Jiva Dharma in its entirety. And we're just picking out, going through it like that. Understand? What?
Here, what Prabhu asked about the demoniac nature. Isn't it that the Buddhists never believe that there is some superior energy and there's not?
They believe in like Brahm. They want to merge into the Brahm, but they become the Brahm.
That's what even Shankaracharya thought, right?
Yes, covered Buddhism. They want to become.
But more of Buddhist, they were like, it's just that you lead your life and after that you dissolve. That's it. Something like that.
The soul will merge into Nirvana, back into the Brahman. That's the very concept
no
of creation.
Controller or something like.
No, there's no submissive.
But whereas Shankaracharya, he brought a little bit of there's some controller who's
yes, very good, very good. Yes, yes, it's true.
That is why it is called, isn't it called demoniac? Because they're not identifying the
right. They're impersonal. They're not acknowledging the supreme person. Therefore, they're demonic. Very good. Yes, that's good.
I don't even think Buddhists believe in a soul.
Huh?
Yeah, they don't believe in soul.
Buddhists even believe in a soul.
They annihilate the soul. They cook the soul, basically, because the soul has no, they don't give the soul a function. They actually think that the material ego should be completely smashed. And that runs through to the pure ego also, has no, because there's no supreme object of service. So therefore, there's no value. It's just all one. Horrible. We should understand it deeply and understand why going into that place of the Brahmajyoti is the most dangerous place conceivable. Because in that atmosphere of light and warmth and love, it's all there, that mood of love, but there's no object of love. It's all very nice. And there's no lamentation, there's no hankering, but it's neutral. Neutral means there's no subject and object. It's just you. But it's an incredibly attractive place to go to. And if in our meditation, sometimes we hit on those places and think, oh, I want to stay there, you can be captured very easily because it seems like Shantaras can be very attractive state of consciousness in this crazy Kali Yuga. Yes, I just want to be peaceful, Shanti. Let me go to that place, you know? But if you actually touch on, I told you, or maybe I didn't, I had a friend who came to stay with me some time ago, and he was practicing this breathing process, Wim Hof it's called. Anyway, he'd actually reached a stage of consciousness like the Brahman, without a doubt. And I lived with him for 6 or 8 weeks and tried to convince him of the Jiva's position. Could not understand. He had Japamala, he had books, he had everything. He was a smart boy. He could not make that jump back into personalism because he'd gone so much into impersonalism, and he couldn't go back into personalism because he knew that he'd have to give up that state of peaceful consciousness that he'd already sort of touched on. And it's very, very, very dangerous. Why would you want to leave the Brahmajyoti if it was such a peaceful place and you had no more desires and nothing like that? You want to stay there. But now we're educating ourselves that there is a goal and it's so much more high. That's why Paramatma realization is absolutely not required on this path. Sometimes people, they look at they say Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Oh, I should experience all of these. No, not at all. If you experience Paramatma realization, you'll never want to leave it again in your life. And you'll stay there for the rest of this life and future lives. And eventually go to Siddha Loka, which is just across the Viraja River. That's the place of the Paramatma realized souls. They don't go beyond that Shantaras practically. They're just a little bit out of the Viraja River. But you can go there forever. An eternal place. Know these dangers badly. I mean, clearly, when you meet someone who's actually heading in that direction, how to demonstrate. The best way is to give them Mahaprasad, because we can't use words. If you give them Mahaprasad and the Maha Mantra, but even the Maha Mantra's potency can be used to entice people to that end. You've got so many spiritual apparent groups on the planet. They're chanting the Maha Mantra, and their goal is impersonal Brahman. It's very rare. What's that? Janma, what's that? Bahunam Janmanam Ante? Gyanavam? Yes. Yes. Out of many, many births, coming to this path is very rare. Bahunam Janmanam Ante. Yes. Sudurlabha, very rare. It's very, very rare, this path. Beautiful. Bhagavad Gita actually says it all. But we need Jaiva Dharma as well. Jai, all glories to Srila Gurudev, all glories to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, all glories to all the Vaishnavas. Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhaveva cha, Patidanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.